You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Sunday pregame show. I'm Derek, and I'm joined, as always, on these Sundays by Chris at Detroit Beastie. How you doing today?
Oh, excuse me, I had an error with my computer. I'm fantastic. I always love the intro, that riff, that ding, 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 that stays in my head all day. I noticed in the shower this morning, not kidding, not trying to be a weirdo, but that riff was playing in my head, and I'm yelling it out loud while I'm showering. I also love in the opening when it says, now it's time to join Joe, Kevin, Steve, and none of them are here. It's just me and you.
Right. Well, that riff was created using a lot of time and some garage band. So not that musically talented myself, but I can go through and put some riffs in on some of those things. So that's kind of a fun little side note, behind the scenes type of deal there.
Yeah, me either. I mean, the only musical talent I have is I think everybody in their life when they were little in elementary school, they went to like some sort of it's a little flute. It's some
the recorder.
The recorder. Yeah, I know how to play that, and I'm trying to. It's not kidding. I'm trying to be self-taught in playing the piano. I think that would be cool to just be able to jam out with a piano. It's so versatile.
Yeah, absolutely. And just quick side note here, a programming note for everybody watching. I just caught it, but the show that you're watching now may say week 14 in the description. We're not talking week 14. We're talking week 15 here. So I've got to go through and, have a stern talking to the guy that sets all of these streams up, things like that. And I just hope that I'm not too hard on myself when I have that conversation later here. So anyway, you were watching week 15. That's what Chris and I are going to talk about here is week 15 fantasy football DFS start sits. Of course, as always, if you guys have questions, things like that, and who doesn't have questions, because this is kind of a crazy week, crazy things going on here. So if you've got those questions, make sure you're throwing them out here. We would love to help you guys out, try and figure out this fantasy football landscape and navigate some of this stuff with y'all today here as well. So make sure you're throwing out the questions, comments, all of that kind of good stuff. But Chris, kind of an interesting game last night, right? That was one that I plain got wrong in a lot of my projections and how I had that thing set up. I called the under on that one. I had a feeling that that game was not going to be overly high scoring. Barely hit the under by a half point, so I got it by not going over the hook there. But I called for that one to be a much closer game. I thought that was going to be New England maybe wins that one, keeps it into a 1 or 2 point type of game there, and Indianapolis looked pretty darn good. And who knew that a Bill Belichick team on defense wouldn't have been able to stop Jonathan Taylor. Like, that was one of the things that I was kind of banking on, was them holding him closer to about 100 yards on the ground, maybe a touchdown. But Jonathan Taylor just went after it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a whole video on it. I mean, I dug in, I explored it, and I must say, very rarely do I pat myself on the back or you kind of shove my ideals in people's face. And I've said that before, and some people disagree, but I don't think I'm a like in your face kind of listen to me take guy. But I don't know what I'm doing differently, but I've been dialed in terms of final score predictions. I'm still shocked that that Kansas City game I got right on the money Monday night, 34-28. It's wild to me. And I had my final score, Indianapolis winning 24-20. So I was within 3 points of both teams here. So I'll take that given the landscape of fantasy football here. I had highlighted Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson. That was nothing special. Everybody had JT in a captain spot or an MVP spot. But I also highlighted Hunter Henry. And I told a lot of folks, I don't know if I want to say I went out on a limb, but I did tell some people, I had a feeling about Hunter Henry last night. It was, I don't want to say well documented, but I'm glad my Hunter Henry take paid off. Guy scored twice. It was outstanding here. My biggest, how can I put, my biggest dog of the game, he really boned me, was Michael Pittman. 11-5 on FanDuel, 10-4 on DraftKings. He didn't do, I believe when I looked, late in the fourth quarter, he had 1 or 2 targets, 5 yards in receiving. It was kind of a bummer, but I guess, in real life football purposes, if you're a Colts Colts fan, you don't care. You got the win. Jonathan Taylor he went nuclear in the fourth quarter. I believe he was sitting at like 70-something yards at the start of the fourth quarter. And then I put on a movie, I rested, and I checked it, and he was already up to 170. He took that one to the house, 67 or 69 yards here. So Jonathan Taylor is, without a doubt, the 101 of draft selections next season in seasonal formats. Not saying anything out of school. And you love to see it, right? Jonathan Taylor is he's a humble dude. He's calm, he's humble, even after the game. Not so much me, it's my teammates, it's my offensive line, it's the coaching staff. And in today's day and age of everybody wanting their face, on TikTok and social media, it's nice to someone say who's really talented, right? To just be like, you know what? I enjoy what I'm doing, and it's not all about me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a joy to watch him run and joy to watch him play. And, one of the things that kind of looking back on that one, like it was very interesting, the landing spot there, how many people kind of dismissed him from being the 101 draft pick in rookie drafts when he was a rookie in dynasty purposes there, and started shifting to a CEH type of deal simply because of landing spot and how that goes. And some of this just kind of shows that talent will win out there. And Jonathan Taylor, definitely a beast, and looks to be kind of the changing of the guard here a little bit from some of your fantasy stalwarts that we've seen over the last few years for that best running back available, that kind of stuff, into Jonathan Taylor firmly putting himself in that conversation. And I don't think we've seen the best yet from him.
No, two things really. I'll be brief so we can get into Week 15 and our favorite games here. But going back to Monday with the Chargers playing Kansas City, everybody just dogged out Coach Staley for not kicking field goals. If they would have kicked the field goals, they would have won the game. Not so much, because you don't know, if you go back to the first quarter, second quarter, fourth down, if they kick the field goal, it's like Back to the Future and the time continuum. If you mess with that kind of stuff, you don't know what will precede it. So at the end of the game, it's easy to say, yeah, shouldn't have kicked those field goals. But I'm saying if they would have kicked one early in the game, 3 points, that would change the whole atmosphere of the game. And same thing, I know what you're getting at with Jonathan Taylor. I've seen a lot of it this morning here. Can you believe the Lions passed up on Jonathan Taylor to draft Swift and things along those lines, right? Jonathan Taylor with the Colts he's Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. If he goes to Detroit, the whole atmosphere of the Lions has changed. His game might, so you can't say, oh my, coulda, shoulda, woulda, if they would have drafted this guy. It's a fluid situation. It's all relative. It's all moving. So Swift on the Colts, would Swift be the 101? Would Swift be doing what Jonathan Taylor is? And if Jonathan Taylor was with the Lions, is he on IR? Is he not? It's such a weird argument in a way. I mean, it's interesting. We're talking about it here, but just because you take the player that they are now and rewind time and put them back on a different team doesn't necessarily always equal the results that are going on now with the team he's on, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Absolutely. And you can make that argument with any great, throughout any sport and any time, era, things like that, that if they were on this team, would they have been as great? And the answer most likely is not, because of the fact that, part of their greatness has to do with the situation and the circumstances around them, the teammates that are there. All of those types of things factor into it. So absolutely. I'm picking up what you're putting down and I like it, but I think you're right. Let's go ahead, and because we can riff on that one all day and just keep going. And, we could put together a 12-hour show on something like that and keep going. So let's go ahead and maybe a different time, different conversation here, but let's go ahead and start hitting up some of these games. I know you like some of these ones. I know I like some of these guys coming up here, and there's a lot of very interesting spreads, interesting matchups here. Let's go ahead and hop over to your first game. Where are you taking us?
Yeah, we're going to go to Jacksonville, right? Newly, freed Jacksonville. Urban Meyer has been fired, and we've seen all the memes like the Wicked Witch, Wizard of Oz, ding dong, Urban Meyer's dead and he's gone here. But I would hold our horses. Everybody, you look at it all week, with Urban Meyer gone, James Robinson is going to be unleashed. He's going to do fantastic. Trevor Lawrence. So I'm just here to say, not to be rude, not to be a jerk, but maybe we should, hold our horses. Just, calm it down here. When you look at this one, Houston at Jacksonville, over/under opened at 41 points. And if you see me looking down, that's obviously because I have my notes. I'm a note master. I got sticky notes highlighters. It's insane what I do, but it works for me. It might be Chinese to someone else. But this game, it opened at 41 total points over under. It's now dipped to 39.5 here. Houston on the road is the underdog. They're getting 4.5 points here. And I just want to point out in my weekly DFS article, I mentioned this game and a couple players from this one, but I said, joking around, right? It's week 15. Let's have some fun. This is all entertainment purposes. Jacksonville was completely shut out last week. They scored 0 points, 0.0 goose egg bagel, however you want to put it. Then Houston in week 13, they were shut out. So who's to say, J-Rob unleashed, Trevor Lawrence doing his thing. Who's to say this one doesn't finish as a 0-0 tie? And we're sitting here like, well, that stunk, but I don't think that's going to happen. When you look at this one, there's a lot to like here. You look at all these games throughout the slate. There's 2 on Monday, 2 on Tuesday. Let's focus on what we have right in front of us. And Trevor Lawrence, $6,500 on FanDuel, only $5,100 on DraftKings. It's one way or another to me. Trevor Lawrence, are they going to let him air it out, really see what they have in this kid, blue chip prospect, or is it going to be a James Robinson kind of day? I lean towards them letting Trevor Lawrence really, start to get acclimated, get back to why he was the first overall pick, and we go from there. So to me, Trevor Lawrence is a massive start in DFS formats and seasonal formats. I know a lot of folks, out there now watching this play seasonal fantasy football, but to me, Trevor Lawrence is a start across the board. And then we get to James Robinson, $6,300 on FanDuel, only $5,400 on DraftKings. Personally, Derek, I have James Robinson about 16, 17 carries in this one, 80 yards, a very healthy yards per kind of average in here. So if you got J-Rob, you're starting him. But again, it's all relative based on who else do you have at this moment in time with all the injuries and the COVID stuff here. I know I've seen a lot of folks, toss out Vishka, Laquan Treadwell, Marvin Jones. Hopefully, Marvin Jones is a pro's pro, a real man's man. I hope they can get back on track. And then on the Houston side of things, I was no secret about what I had to do last week in my seasonal formats, and that's start Davis Mills, because Jalen Hurts was on a bye week. I was in a pinch, and I played Davis Mills, and the kid did very well for us, over 300 yards passing, and boom, hopefully he can carry that over here. More than likely, I wouldn't predict, another 300-yard passing game, but Jacksonville, they're 12th, 13th overall, DVP, Davis Mills, $6,800 on FanDuel, only $5,400 on DraftKings, and that's about it in this game from the Houston side of things, both in DFS formats and seasonal formats. If you want to take a look at maybe Nico Collins, only $3,500 on DraftKings. Nico on FanDuel, only $5,300. The rookie from Michigan, go blue, playing Georgia in the playoffs here. So to me, there's a lot of drips and drabs here from a DFS perspective. Seasonal formats, it's pretty cut and dry here. Trevor Lawrence, James Robinson, and that's about it, Derek.
I like it. I like it a lot. Real quick, you're talking about, options and where to play, things like that. So we had a question coming in on Twitter from Paul here real quick. Paul, I apologize. I can't get your question up here on screen because Twitter doesn't allow us to do that over here. But I see your comment here. And so it's, do I start Van Jefferson, Craig Reynolds, or Miles Sanders in a full PPR format? For me, this is one of those that it depends on what I need. If I need more of a floor, I'm going to go with a guy like Miles Sanders in this case here. Craig Reynolds, I think, has a little bit of a upside there. But again, I don't know that you're going to see Detroit be able to continually run that ball. Arizona's been pretty good against the run all season long. And as far as the Van Jefferson, if I need a ceiling play and I need a guy that I can go out there and, big play type of thing, that's where Van Jefferson comes into it for me. So that's where I would tell you, ceiling, I'm going Van Jefferson. Floor, I'm going with Miles Sanders. What are your thoughts here?
No, you said it best. Yeah, I was looking. There's a question out there now. Robinson, Hollywood Brown, Freeman. That's the one I was prepping for. So it's nice to get a little curveball every once in a while and see what we can do. No, you said it best. There's not too much more I can elaborate on this one here. To me, it's Miles Sanders, Craig Reynolds, and then Van Jefferson in that order. But you said it best. You want a ceiling game? You need to say floor. Derek, you laid it out beautifully.
I like it. Let's go ahead and hit up this next question that you were going to. Ian over on YouTube, appreciate you tuning in, guys. Appreciate all the questions. James Robinson, Marquise Hollywood Brown, or Devonta Freeman at flex, full PPR. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I'm looking up what I have for each guy now. I told that's one of my old tricks, right? Someone says player A, B, or C. I give my projections for them, and I let the owner make the choice. That way, they can't come back around to me and go, "You told me to start this guy, and he sucked." So I have James Robinson, as I said, 16, 17 carries, about 80 yards, almost 5 yards a pop here, finding the end zone, couple receptions. So right now, it's looking sweet. In terms of Hollywood Brown, a healthy target share, 9, 10 targets, 6, maybe 7 receptions. You're looking at about 70 yards, but no touchdowns. So far, I'm all in on James Robinson. And then when we get to the third guy in this order here, let me bring that up briefly. Oh, Devonta Freeman. Yeah, Freeman's a nice play in certain formats here, but I just have a case here where it would be James Robinson, probably Freeman, and then Marquise Brown here. Because again, maybe I'm old school here, Derek, but I will always start the running backs over the receivers, within reason based on who it is and matchups.
Yeah, that is 100% how I look at that as well. I am a bigger fan of going with running backs over wide receivers in just about every case, with the biggest reason being they get the most opportunity, right? And when you're talking opportunity, that tends to equal greater success towards fantasy, right? Because of the fact that somebody can have a big play, things like that. Now, Marquise Hollywood Brown has shown that he is a big play threat and can house a 50, 60 yard touchdown type of thing. But James Robinson also has that kind of capability there as well. I think that you're going to see Jacksonville get up and continually try and run the clock and beat that out. The fact that James Robinson looks fully active, fully healthy on this one, I like that move there. Both Marquise Hollywood Brown and Devonta Freeman worry me slightly because of the fact that we're still not 100% sure on what Lamar Jackson's status is going to be, still carrying the questionable tag, even at this late time in the day. And we're going to see that continue up until probably about 90 minutes before that game kicks off, when their final injury report is due to the league and gets released there. And if Lamar Jackson misses this game, there's a good chance that the Ravens have to get away from the run game a little bit, because Green Bay is favored by a bunch in that one. Same thing with Marquise Hollywood Brown. Like, it comes down to who do you trust throwing him the ball, and do you necessarily trust Huntley coming in there and being able to hit Marquise Hollywood Brown, hit him on a deep shot, things like that. And I don't know that if Lamar Jackson misses and that threat of Lamar's run game is gone, if that is going to allow Marquise to get behind the defense for a big, deep one. So I like James Robinson, and then have it also in that order that you listed there as well. So I love it. Love it a lot. Alrighty. I think I'm next up here on that, unless you've got some other thoughts.
I'm good. Let's hit it. I will say, who's going to be quarterback for Baltimore today? I don't want to open up that can of worms, but, is it going to be Huntley, as you said, Lamar Jackson? Regardless, Hollywood Brown is not very appetizing, at least this week.
No. And I would probably, if I'm having to make that decision, I'm probably going to go with Lamar. I cannot imagine that he doesn't find a way to get out there. Unless he absolutely can't go. If there's a chance that he can play, I think that's the way they're going to do it, because Baltimore is still in a playoff hunt and they've got to win some games here down the stretch to get in. And who gives you the best chance? Even a Lamar at 80% or any of their backups at 100%. And the answer is easily Lamar in that case. So that's how I kind of am banking on that one and playing that one. But I am also making contingencies down the road there as well. So let's go ahead and hit up. I've got the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants here. And this one should be an interesting matchup here. One of those that Dallas has looked a little bit spotty here and there down the stretch. A couple of good games, couple of bad games, losing to some teams that they probably shouldn't have lost to, including my Denver Broncos there. But regardless of that, this one here's a 10.5 type of point game with an over under of 44.5. I kind of like the Giants to find a way to lose this game by less than 10. I think Dallas is going to win this game, but I think this is going to be a 7-8 point type of game. I don't think that it's going to be overly high scoring. The Dallas run game is kind of beat up there, right? Where it looks like Pollard's going to play. We're going to see him potentially get some workload here. Zeke's still a little bit banged up. I think that you're going to probably see the Dallas passing offense explode here a little bit more, right? Jerry Jones coming out in the media, kind of getting after Dak a little bit. I have a feeling that that's going to fire him up, and you're going to see a pretty big CeeDee Lamb day. I think you're going to see a pretty decent Amari Cooper kind of day. Schultz is definitely in play for me on this one. On the New York side of things, I am not as optimistic, right? You've got Glennon back there. It sounds like they may also try and throw Jake Fromm into the mix. And this is one of those that I just don't see this one. This is one of those, I'm glad that this is an out of market game for me, so that I'm not going to be able to see what this one looks like here, because I don't think it's going to ultimately be some great football on the field there. But who knows? The Giants can surprise us here a little bit, I think, to the point where they only lose this game by about 8 points. I see the under on this thing. Saquon will be serviceable, but I don't see him as anything more than an RB2 this week, and I'm staying away from every pass catcher on the New York Giants if I can pivot. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, any and all Giants are a full fade for me. I'm with you in terms of the under, but I'm also very ready and willing. I already booked it. I'm taking Dallas minus the 10.5 points here. I think they win by like 17 or 18 points here. I have the final being like 28-10. I would be shocked to see the New York Giants score more than 10 points. If they do, it'll be one more field goal. So you're looking at 13-28 here. For the Giants, I'm all good. Want nothing to do with that. And if you look at the Dallas Cowboys DST right now, they make for a very good play in DFS formats and in seasonal formats. They're kind of zooming around right now. Granted, they can be beaten in the air. They're 24th overall DVP against wide receivers, but against running backs, they're 3rd overall. So again, if the Cowboys can just completely eliminate Saquon Barkley from this game, they're going to be on easy street. Regardless, I still think they're on easy street here. But you're right. Saquon Barkley is serviceable at this moment in time, week 15, with all the injuries and COVID. Who would you have in your lineup or on your team right now that you would feel comfortable fading Saquon Barkley for? Craig Reynolds, Donta Foreman? Absolutely not. So Saquon Barkley, I don't want to say he's a must start, but basically he is a must start given the landscape of football right now. And then on the Dallas Cowboys side of things, they're just going to go nuts in terms of the wide receivers here. The Giants are 25th overall DVP against opposing wide receivers here, but you can just name them out: Cooper, Lamb, Gallup, Cedric Wilson, and we go down there. I believe all 3 or 4 of them kind of limit each other's ceiling here. They're all going to be taking away little drips and drabs of each other's upside. So of them, yeah, CeeDee Lamb is the play here, but in DFS formats, a full fade of this game completely. But again, in seasonal formats, you're not going to bench CeeDee Lamb. You're not going to bench Michael Gallup and or Cooper Kupp here. So I'm with you to a certain extent. Dallas wins. I would imagine 18 points in an NFL game is big. So give me Dallas to win big.
All right, I like it. Real quick before we hit your next one, quick question here. Rank them: Gallup, Ayuk, James Robinson for a flex position. Who you got?
Well, I already went over James Robinson here. 17, 18 carries for about 80 yards. Michael Gallup, 7, maybe 8 targets, 4 receptions, like 50 yards or so. So as it stands now, I would prefer J-Rob over Michael Gallup. And when we look at what Ayuk can do or has been doing, it's been outstanding. But you got to deal with Deebo Samuel here. I have Brandon Ayuk, 7, 8 targets, 4, maybe 5 receptions, 50, 60 yards. But I do think Ayuk finds the end zone. But I also think J-Rob finds the end zone here. So to me, it's J-Rob 1A, Brandon Ayuk 1B, and then you got Gallup kind of bringing up the rear here.
Co-sign on that one. I've got it where Brandon Ayuk's probably about 6 spots ahead of Michael Gallup this week in my own rankings. And again, like we already talked about, I'm taking a running back over wide receivers for a flex position. More opportunity. Absolutely. So I will co-sign on your ranking. I like it a lot. Chris, where are you taking us for your next matchup?
Well, we're going to keep it in Florida. We were in Jacksonville, and boom, just a quick little south flight to get to Miami here. The Jets are in Miami in this one. Over under, I believe it opened at around 43. It's since dipped down to 41 total points. The Jets on the road, obviously the underdog. They're getting 9.5 points in this one, which is wild to me. I do like the under as well, but there are some gems to be plucked from this one. And look, this time last week, or even Sunday night, Monday, and Tuesday when I was was writing bottom of the barrel, the Miami Dolphins, they were just completely annihilated by the COVID IR. Gaskin was out. Philip Lindsay, I wanted to get him in the article. Then he got put on IR, COVID IR, and then Salvin Ahmed did the same thing. But we can breathe a sigh of relief. All of those running backs are going to be active today. I love Myles Gaskin in any and all formats. Tua has just been on fire, and when you look at his price tag in season and DFS formats, $7,400 on FanDuel, and get this, Derek, only $5,700 on DraftKings. It's criminal to me. I love the idea of Tua and Gaskin in just kind of a 1-2 stack here, 1-2 punch. Gaskin, he'll catch a couple passes, nothing wild, but if Jalen Waddle, I believe he's already been deemed inactive. He was put on the COVID IR late this coming week here. So to me, it's all about the Miami Dolphins, Tua, Gaskin, as I said. And when you look at the New York Giants side of things, one thing is sticking out like a sore thumb to me, and that's Michael Carter. The rookie has missed a few games. He's been not on the IR, but he's been injured. I believe he had a little stint on the COVID IR. But to me, Michael Carter in DFS formats, I'm starting to build my lineups, putting him in there first, and then boom, moving on. Only $5,900 on FanDuel. Carter, $4,700 on DraftKings. Carter makes for a sweet little piece here in DFS formats, seasonal formats as well. We've waited all these weeks to get the rookie back in our lineup, so there's no looking back now. You're going to get Carter in any and all formats, specifically DFS. I have Miami winning this one, and I've been going back and forth. I believe I mentioned I like the under 43 here, but I think Miami wins by a healthy margin. You're looking at about 10 points in this one, so you could take Miami minus 9.5, but you're going to be sweating it out. It's not going to be, the score isn't going to shake out until the clocks hit all zero. Could be some late second, field goal by the Jets, followed by an onside kick to try and get it within one possession here. So you're going to be sweating it out, but I would be okay taking Miami minus 9.5. They win, as I said, 24-14-ish.
I like it. I like it a lot. And this is one of those, we were talking pregame before the show, that when we were talking on this one, both of us kind of seeing this being right around that 10-point margin there. And so depending upon what book you're looking at, there's a chance that the hook is 10.5 versus the 9.5. So one of those that I think you're right. I think this one's right around that 2-possession game, right around that 10-point type of mark. So it's a very, very interesting one here. And there's definitely some interesting plays here. Before we hit up my next one, we've got a question coming in. Any thoughts on Antonio Brown for next week? Maybe as a stash, you put him on there, but that's a desperation play for a guy that's been out for many, many weeks. Yeah. And that Tampa offense is kind of hitting on all cylinders without him. So, at this point, I've figured out a way to manage the landscape without him for several weeks now, and I'm probably going to continue writing that method. I don't want a guy coming back off of an injury, things like that. First week back anyway. So
suspension actually for buying a falsified COVID card. I mean, I'll leave it alone. I'm not going to insult anybody or put anybody down, but at last I looked, Tampa Bay isn't even certain they're going to bring him back. They might just cut him outright. And you're right. This offense is hitting on all cylinders, perfect timing, few weeks away from the playoffs. There's just no way you would use AB in any and all. Even DFS, I couldn't make a story for it. I just don't like the guy. He rubs me the wrong way. He actually rubs a lot of folks the wrong way, and there's just no chance I want AB anywhere near my teams, especially next week. You'd be moving on in the fantasy football playoffs. It'd be a semifinal. No way I'm risking that with AB next week. So my thoughts, no.
Right. Yep, that's kind of the old story. Don't get cute in the playoffs. Play the guys who got you there. Play your studs. The only time that you're going to swing for the fences is if you're a big dog and you're a big underdog and you're looking for big ceiling plays. And I don't think Antonio Brown's going to give you a big ceiling. All right, let's go ahead and head on over to my next matchup here, and that's the Green Bay Packers visiting the Baltimore Ravens. Green Bay Packers, the newly minted number 1 seed in the NFC after the Arizona Cardinals lost last week. And this is an interesting one here too, right? The Lamar news has kind of shaken this thing up here a little bit. And so that's something to be very, very aware of and I'm having backup plans left and right on this one for any of the Baltimore Ravens that I've got on this one. If Lamar's healthy, I'm playing my Ravens players that have gotten me to this point, right? I'm going to play Lamar. I'm going to play Marquise Hollywood Brown. I'm going to play Mark Andrews. I'm going to play Devonta Freeman, things like that. I'm going to play these guys that have gotten me here if Lamar plays. If Lamar misses and it's Huntley out there, I'm making plans to pivot and everywhere that I can. And I'm going to make sure that I've got guys and the flexibility on my roster to make those pivots there as well. So something worth keeping a note on. This is an interesting one with the Lamar news happening. The line on this thing moved from about 4.5, all the way up to 7.5, depending upon kind of the books that you're looking at on this one. And so that is a big difference that he's going to make on this one here. The over under right about 43.5 points. So not a ton of points being scored in this one. And I think that that's going to hold pretty true here as well. But it's not going to surprise me if I look up and I see this one and, Baltimore won this thing 27-14 type of, I'm sorry, Green Bay winning this thing 24-17, 24-14 type of thing. That's kind of how I see this one playing out. Green Bay Packers, if you start, you're starting your studs, you're starting Aaron Rodgers, you're starting Devonta Adams, and also something worth keeping a note on. Aaron Jones has been out-touched by A.J. Dillon for the last several weeks going forward here. Aaron Jones also having a little bit of an injury designation tag throughout the week here. So worth monitoring there. But I'm still playing Aaron Jones if I've got him. I think that he will have a pretty decent game here, worthy of RB2 territory, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was, while you were, about to read off your final score, I was, we were almost, I was waiting for you to say the same exact thing I have. I think Green Bay wins this one 27-23, somewhere along those lines. It's going to be close. It's going to be contested any way you slice it, as you said. 17-14 is also realistic. But with this game, Green Bay at Baltimore, I've said this all week as much as I could without being annoying here. But Green Bay, it's no secret. Green Bay has Super Bowl aspirations, as you said, newly minted, first overall. That winning the North is basically locked. They probably have already clinched the NFC North, and it's just about playoff seeding at this time. But over all these years, I've watched as Green Bay's just completely annihilated the NFC North. They've completely buried the Lions here. But you can pluck a little bit of goodness from that one. Every time this year, Green Bay's always got 10, 11, maybe 12 wins. I'm not expecting a ton of work or a ton of projection from Aaron Jones today. I could see Aaron Jones about 10, maybe 11 carries at that, but A.J. Dillon, you're looking at 13, 14, maybe even 15 carries here as they kind of get acclimated into the playoff run. You know what? Green Bay's last two games of the season are against Minnesota and Detroit. They know what they got going on. There's no reason to burn out or exhaust Aaron Jones here. It's just a clear path, to a high-ranking seed there for Green Bay in the playoffs here. So to me, it's all about stacking Aaron Rodgers, Devonta Adams, and A.J. Dillon. Again, I want to preface this by saying, just because I say, or just because we say, Aaron Jones, I'm going to fade him this week, doesn't mean I hate the guy. There's just there's a plan in place that I have, at least in my head here, and I just have a feeling A.J. Dillon is the premier back, at least this week and the next few, as Green Bay gears up for a deep playoff run here.
Yep, I like it. A question coming in here on the YouTube. Triple Cross on YouTube asking Gibson or Henderson this week. For me, it's going to be Gibson over Henderson, but I want to get your thoughts and I'll expand on why I'm going that route.
Yeah, unless I'm way out of the loop. Last I looked, D. Hendy, is he still a game time decision? Still 50-50 to play?
It looked like he got activated off of the COVID list earlier. Okay. Late last night. I saw that news kind of come through. Nice. So it looks like he's set to go. But for me, part of the reason that I'm going with Gibson over Henderson is that the Washington football team is still very much in a playoff hunt. They've got to win. It's a divisional matchup here against the Eagles. And I think that he is going to see a big workload. There's a good chance that Terry McLaurin is a game time decision. I haven't necessarily seen him clear the protocols or the concussion protocols that he had on this one. And I could be mistaken on that one, but Darrell Henderson coming back, right? Like when you're coming back off of this thing, we've seen some players in the past take a little bit of time to come back off of that COVID designation list to get kind of back to full form. Sony Michel has looked really good for the Rams offense. And one of those that, I think that they're going to at least acclimate Henderson back on a smaller workload this week, and you're going to see a little bit more of a 50-50 timeshare this week between Michel and Henderson, whereas I think Gibson's going to get the full workload. And that's why I'm going with Gibson on this one, because I think that he's probably going to get around 20 opportunities in this game, and I think Henderson's going to be closer to about 12, 13 type of opportunities total.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And folks, you got to pay attention to these playoff implications and seeding, because that is real life stuff. These football teams, that's more serious to them. They've never cared about our fantasy teams here. But when you look at these two teams, you said it best. Gibby in Washington is still scratching and clawing to get into the playoffs here. I have Gibby around, 16, maybe even 18 carries in this one, 4 or 5 receptions, just a dynamite kind of workload. And when you look at Henderson here, why would they put Hendy in there and let him just go wild or have a ton of carries, given the fact the Rams, much like Green Bay, they have playoff and Super Bowl implications here. That's where they're leaning towards. So why would they burn out their RB1 in a game here where they might be able to win regardless? They might not even have to give a running back a carry in this one if they wanted to win the game. Obviously, that won't happen. I'm being over dramatic here, but the Rams and Matthew Stafford and Kupp and these guys will beat Seattle here, so why even exhaust or risk further injury for their premier back in a game where they could easily win going elsewhere here? So this one, to me, it's Gibby, and it's not close. It's a slam dunk with Gibby.
Absolutely. Chris, you got another game for us?
I do. I have about 15 more if you got the time here, but personally, I love the Cincinnati at Denver game in this one. I know a pre-show, as they say, I ran it by you because you're a Denver guy. You live in Colorado. I know you like Denver, so I wouldn't want to overstep here, and I would imagine you'd give me the same pleasantries if you wanted to talk about the Lions. You can have the Lions, every day of the week if you want. But Cincinnati at Denver, this one opened at 44 total points, over under. It stayed right there. Denver at home is giving Cincinnati 3 points in this one. Now, on paper, a lot of folks would look at this one and go, hey, from a DFS perspective, I just can't get a pulse on this one. And in the DVP matchups, Denver is pretty good. They're top 10 in defending quarterbacks, top 10 against running backs, wide receivers, tight ends across the board here. So you're saying, well, what are we doing with our Cincinnati Bengals players? Joe Burrow is in play any and all times. Superflex league, seasonal formats. Obviously, there's no better option. Who you're gonna fade Joe Burrow in favor of Davis Mills? No, absolutely not. So in seasonal formats, you're going to start all your Bengals, all your Denver Broncos. But in DFS formats, I love T. Higgins here. T. Higgins, $6,500 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, T. Higgins is $6,800. Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but T. Higgins has 100-yard receiving games in 3 out of the last 4 contests here. So to me, T. Higgins, along with, as I've said, Michael Carter, they're already in my DFS lineups. I'm starting to build with those 2 players this week here. On the Denver Broncos side of things, I'm not kidding when I say I love the idea of rostering both Melvin Gordon III and Javonte Williams in DFS lineups. It worked last week. I did it myself, right? In the 425 Express, late games here, I stacked both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, and I won a pretty penny because of that. Who's to say we can't go back to that well this week, given the fact that Cincinnati is, I believe, 20th against opposing running backs here. Both dudes, it'll be split right down the middle. I could see both guys getting at least 10 carries apiece, couple receptions here, and I firmly believe both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams can get it done here for seasonal formats and our DFS formats here. And then that's just about it on the Denver side of things. However, I did mention Noah Fant and Albert OK. Won't even try to pronounce this. Okawebanam, yeah. So let's do Noah Fant, and I'll still say Albert OK. Said it once, so I'm good. Might leave on a high note here. But both dudes at tight end in DFS formats are very much in play for me this week. Both are under $6,000 on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings, they're both under $4,000. Actually, Fant is $4,400, but Albert OK is $3,300. So start all your Cincinnati Bengals on Denver. Full fade of Teddy, and I would absolutely start both Denver running backs here.
Absolutely. I have a feeling both those Denver running backs are going to find the end zone in this one. So absolutely, I'm on board with that one. One thing, and what was the stat you gave? Was it 2 of 3 or 3 or 4 on the 100-yard T. Higgins?
I believe it's 3 of the last 4 games. He went over 100 receiving yards.
You are correct. And the last three in a row have been 100-yard receiving games. So absolutely, I think that he's going to do some things here. One of the things that worries me a little bit as a Denver fan in this one is Denver has been susceptible to getting beat by a deep shot at least once in some of these games. Hollywood Brown did it. Henry Ruggs did it. You've seen several of these faster receivers, these big play, deep threat type of guys, break one out and go one over the top for a 40 or 50-yard touchdown. And it's not going to surprise me watching this game if Jamar Chase manages to have a house call of about 40 or 50 yards on one of these things on a deep threat there. But I think that they're going to necessarily hold him in check the rest of the way through on this one. I don't see a big game. I see T. Higgins really being kind of on that same boat where he's going to get the yardage on this one. Also not going to surprise me if we find the end zone on this one. This was one of those that also when I was looking at it, I saw the over kind of hitting. So very, very interesting here as well. But I liked all your thoughts going through there, and I'm co-signing on all of those, right? Play the Denver running backs. I'm staying away from my Broncos wide receivers outside of Fant, outside of Albert O, because those guys can potentially find the end zone on this one. And that's really all that you can hope for as a Denver Broncos fan for your receiving options, is one of them manages to fall in the end zone at some point during the game. So anyway, let's go ahead here. We got one question coming in. Amon-Ra St. Brown or Marquise Hollywood Brown. Jair is coming back, but the Cards got Byron in the slot. For me, this one, it depends fully on Lamar Jackson on this one again, right? Like I know that I've said that a lot, but if Lamar's healthy and playing, I'm playing Marquise Hollywood Brown. He has been a very, very serviceable wide receiver all year long. Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, very tough matchup there. And I think the Lions are going to have to throw the ball probably more so than the Ravens are going to. So maybe a bigger piece of the pie, but I like Hollywood Brown if Lamar plays, and if not, I'm going to lean with Amon-Ra.
Yeah, it's a great synopsis or analysis here, but I think it's week 15, right? A lot of COVID, as we mentioned, injuries running through, and I know a lot of folks this time of the year. Let my camera readjust here because my face must be too big. But you look at a lot of folks are second guessing and they're tinkering. So more times than not, or it's more important this week than any other week, we have to make a decision and stick with it. So I'm deciding on Amon-Ra St. Brown in this one. When you look at the DVP matchups, right, I believe Arizona is like 19th or 20th against opposing wide receivers, and Green Bay, they're top 12. I believe they're right at 12th overall in terms of defending opposing wide receivers in this one. Jair Alexander coming back is a big deal because he roams around. He's not only a cornerback, but he can play a little free safety. They send him on blitz packages, and we go from there. But there's no denying that the Lions stink. They've won one game. But there is also no denying that Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown have developed some sort of connection. There is chemistry there. So for that fact, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. And briefly, I'll give you my projections for each guy. I'm looking at Amon-Ra, 7-8 targets, 5-6 receptions, around 50 to 60 yards in this one. Kid's only averaging 9 yards a reception, but hey, it is what it is. And then when you look at Marquise Brown, as I said earlier in the broadcast, 9 or 10 targets, 6, maybe 7 receptions, 70 yards or so. But that's all relative, and it's all based on if Lamar Jackson is playing. To be honest with you, Derek, maybe I'm crazy, but I would prefer I would prefer Hollywood Brown if Tyler Huntley is playing. This guy just lets it loose because he's playing like there's no tomorrow, because there's not. He knows Lamar Jackson is that QB1 there. So to me, Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit here, and in a way, I know I said a lot of nonsense without giving you a final decision here, but I'm preferring Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you want to get if it makes you feel uneasy, then play Amon-Ra in your seasonal formats and then put in St. Brown in DFS format. So that way you're kind of covered either way.
Yeah, and this is one of those that you're going to have to make the decision on that if you're talking a wide receiver 2, something like that, before these 11 o'clock games kick off, because the Lions play, or I guess 1 o'clock, depending upon what time zone you're in. But the 1 o'clock games here, right? Detroit plays on that one. You're not going to see the Ravens kick off until later in the day here, with the late game, the 4:30 game, basically on the East Coast there. So, and at that point, if I'm going back and forth on some of this indecisions, you're going to go with the guy that the situation looks cleaner at the time that you're making the decision. And at that point, it is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we know who the starting quarterback is going to be. We know how this is going to look. There's a lot of questions going with Marquise Hollywood Brown there. So I can hop on that train with you. I like it. Last game here. We're going to run through this one real quick and we're going to call it a day. Last game I want to take you to is Las Vegas and the Cleveland Browns, the early Monday afternoon game or Monday evening game, depending upon where you're at. This one here, I'm going to highlight this one because this is a whole lot of stay away from this game and pivot everywhere you can. That's why I wanted to highlight this one. I am staying away from Josh Jacobs. I don't think that they're going to manage to do much on the ground there. I think this is going to be a very big Hunter Renfrow type of day. We've already seen Darren Waller ruled out there. So the only Raider that I'm feeling comfortable playing in anywhere is Hunter Renfrow. On the flip side, I am staying away from every Cleveland Brown wide receiver out there and pass catcher out there. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be yet, right? You have both Case Keenum and Baker on the COVID list. So I see a very big game coming from Nick Chubb. Like I see a huge game coming from Nick Chubb. The Raiders at times have been leaky against opposing running backs. So Nick Chubb going to have a monster game here. You're going to also see one Mr. Dearness Johnson, I think, get some run here with Hunt being out there. So you're going to see both of the running backs there have some pretty good run there. But there's only really two guys in this whole matchup that I'm looking to play there, and I'm looking to pivot everywhere else if it's not Hunter Renfrow and it's not Nick Chubb. And I don't see many points being scored in this game, right? The line on this thing, 38 total points, and I don't know that we're going to get to even that much. Like, that is a very, very low-scoring game, and it's not going to surprise me when we look up and see this game end 17-14 type of thing with the Browns winning.
You know what? It's funny that you say that, right? Because if you look on DFS formats right now, if you use an optimizer, you go to Rise or Fall and look at their study hub, not much information is available. But this is what I've made for this game. It's a whole page because I recorded a single game slate DFS video because I thought it was going to be played yesterday, Saturday afternoon, but they moved it to Monday here. So when you look across this thing, you know, in DFS formats at least, I believe Nick Mullins might be the cheapest source of 250 passing yards ever in the history of DFS. He's only $5,000 on FanDuel, $6,000 on DraftKings here. It's Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb. And at the top here, I wrote, you know, I do these little notes and I wrote Chubb like 17 times with an explanation point at the end of each one, much like I did yesterday for Jonathan Taylor. This game, this Raiders at Cleveland game is going to start and finish and go through Nick Chubb in this one. I could see Chubb realistically getting 20 plus carries. I think that's on the low end. Look at what JT did yesterday. How many carries did he finish with? Probably 28 to 30 carries in here. I think we see literally the same trajectory for Nick Chubb in this one. And the Raiders are 29th overall against opposing running backs. Nick Chubb is going to go nuts. 20 carries and 100 yards is his floor in this one. I think he puts it in the end zone twice. Maybe, I know it's outlandish to say a player can score 2 or 3 touchdowns here, but everything is ready. They're just begging us to take Nick Chubb, and they're just telling us Nick Chubb is going to score 15 times in this one, and I'd have to agree. 14-5 on FanDuel, only 11-4 on DraftKings. And then when we go down through the wide receivers, Hunter Renfrow is the only one that's moving the needle because in terms of DVP, Cleveland, they're 11th against opposing receivers. And then the Raiders, they're 6th overall against opposing receivers. So you're right, I'm fully fading all Cleveland wide receivers. I could make a case for DPJ, Michigan man, Donovan Peoples-Jones, 9-5 on FanDuel, only 74 on DraftKings, looking at 7 or 8 targets here. But to me, it's all about Nick Chubb. And as we said throughout the length of this video, there's no way if you have Nick Chubb or even Josh Jacobs, who do you have that you'd feel more comfortable playing Chubb or Jacobs over? Granted, Jonathan Taylor, but this kid has already played. So to me, all about Chubb. And guess what? It's all about Chubb.
Right. I like it. I like it a lot. Guys, I do think that that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Again, if you have any questions, anything like that, hit us up on our socials. You can find Chris at Detroit Beastie over there on Twitter. You can find the Good Old Boys at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Good Old Boys FF. Love interacting, love chatting with y'all. Chris, I know that you got your bottom of the barrel out there over at teamriseorfall.com. It's always a great article, and I look forward to reading it absolutely every single week when it comes out there. Any other final thoughts for the listeners?
No, I mean, I got my my Tampa Bay and New Orleans single game DFS slate video coming later this afternoon. I'm recording all day. I'm going to do a video for both Monday night football games. And what do we have? The Raiders at Cleveland, as we said, at 5 p.m. Minnesota at Chicago at 8:15 p.m. And then I got a video for both Tuesday games: Seattle at the Rams and Washington at Philly. Come to find out, both those Tuesday games are at the same time, so that's sweet. We'll be able to go back and forth. What they should do, maybe if Joe Buck has his hand in there, they should kick off one game and then wait 5 minutes, kick off the other game, so they'll be perfectly in sync. When one game's at a commercial, the other, so we, you know what I'm getting at, so we can just go back and forth on Tuesday here. Or if you're like me, or even you, Derek, we're gonna have 15 TV set up so we can watch every game at the same time. So thanks for having me here. Always a joy to kind of end my broadcasting commitments on the week and on Sunday with you here at the Good Old Boys.
Absolutely. Always appreciate having you on here. The DFS knowledge is real and is worth it. Make sure that you're following Chris over there on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. Get all of his DFS lineups, get all of his fantasy football content, because it's one of those that it will certainly help you out down the stretch. He's Chris. I'm Derek. Have a great one. Be safe.